The Parque Avellaneda neighborhood in Buenos Aires, Argentina seemed peaceful on June 11, 2019. But everything changed at 3:55 p.m. when local police discovered that one of the house's doors was ajar. The record showed that it was a retired couple named Alberto Anthony Chirico and Maria Deli Esperanza. The police tried to contact them but were unable to, so they began to suspect the worst. By that time, all the housemates had already moved in. They assumed that there had been a robbery. Those in the Moscow military district who lived just a block away learned about what had happened and were very concerned. As soon as she arrived at the house, the police decided to investigate. What they saw was incredible. The house was in complete disorder. In one corner, the bodies of pensioners lay on the floor. Sonia Rebecca Soaga, the daughter of Adolf and Ofelia Salaga, was born in Argentina in 1985. She grew up in a working-class family among her 6 siblings. Her father supported the family by working as a street vendor. However, Sonia did not grow up in a wealthy environment. She did not have any special problems with the transition to adulthood. It was then that she decided to become a police officer. Although the girl's father gave her some money, the girl was the main breadwinner of the family. In 2004, at the age of 19, Sonia got pregnant and gave birth to a girl whom she loved more than anything in the world. Soon after, she separated from her partner and returned to her parents. Although the girl's father gave her some money, Sonia's plans were thwarted when the girl joined the Buenos Aires police in 2011. Her parents were unhappy with her decision. Although they considered this work extremely risky, years passed, and in 2017 her only serious problem was the lack of money. She was able to go to the police department of the independent city of Buenos Aires, where she would be paid more. The girl was given a job at the 9C police station, where she not only got a better job but also found love. She began dating Dio Alberto Polier, an officer a year older than her, and their daughter grew up in a healthy environment, attended high school, and spent her early years in peace. Sonia was moved to the Avellaneda Park area in May 2019. Most of all, she was valued by 2 pensioners who lived on General Henny Garcon Street, where Sonia was on duty several times. Their names were Albert Antonio Chirico and Maria Deli Esperanza. They were 71 and 63 years old, respectively. Maria was born in 1956 in Arau in the province of Buenos Aires. She had to patrol there from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., where she met many shop owners and residents who became attached to her. When she arrived in the capital, she met Alberto, who was born and raised in the Avellaneda Park area. The couple had 2 daughters, Florence and Mariana, and they lived together for more than 40 years. People in the community knew and respected them. Maria was respected by many for her work as a teacher for visually impaired children, and Alberto was always associated with the pharmaceutical industry. The couple also loved music. When their spouses were away, friends, relatives, and acquaintances often came to see them. Seen in the park or at events, the couple immediately hit it off with Sonia, striking up daily conversations and becoming more confident in her whenever they saw her at work. The relationship deteriorated to such an extent that they invited her to lunch because they knew that during her shift she would not have much time to eat. In the sun, they brought her water or coffee and sometimes even allowed her to go to the toilet. They did not realize how stressful the situation was, although they felt that they knew her. Her daughter Sonia was approaching her 15th birthday, but unlike other girls, she had no desire to throw a party. Instead, her goal was to visit Disneyland in the United States. Sonia looked through lists of companies that could accommodate her. She finally called a company that specialized in trains. But the woman's actual financial situation did not allow her to purchase such a gift. However, she managed to negotiate with the company about payment for it. Every month Sonia had to put in much more work and sacrifice. But she stopped at nothing to make her daughter happy. Even though Sonia started working an extra shift at the hospital in June before the trip, she still owed $6,000 a month to the entertainment agency. This caused her to lose patience, as she did not know how to get the money, and what happened to her was obviously the first. On June 11, 2019, Sonia arrived at the police station of Commune No. 7 to report a robbery. She claimed that on that day, while she was driving in the Flores area, she was hit by a Renault Duster in front and a Volkswagen Gold in the back. Then an armed man got out of each car and she tried to protect himself with his 9-lira weapon, firing 2 shots. But none of them hit the criminals. The men then stole her gun and took away the significant amount of cash she had on her. despite the fact that Sonia testified to every police station in Buenos Aires. Officers of the 9th City Regional Police Department were walking through the Avellaneda Park on June 11th when they noticed something that caught their attention. The door of a house on General Uche Garzón Street was wide open. The officers were more concerned about another terrible crime that had occurred that same day, so they decided to find out the names of the owners Albert Antonio Chirico and Maria Deli Esperanza. The police tried to contact them by phone but did not receive an answer by the time the police arrived. For a few minutes and attracted the attention of every neighbor. One of the neighbors approached them and informed them that the couple's daughter lived a block from the house. The police promptly gave the woman a warning and she entered the house with them. Upon entering, they noticed a huge mess, so they began to move faster, fearing the worst. Some time later, their fears were confirmed. The bodies of Albert and Maria were lying on the ground close to each other. They both had fatal gunshot wounds to the back of the head which were visible on their faces. There were also injuries from a blunt object and other wounds in the same place that and next to the bodies lying on the pillow. The burgundy color likely served as a muffler to muffle the sound of gunfire. The police quickly came to the following conclusions regarding the horrific crime. The victims probably knew the attacker since the front doors were not forced and the disorder in the house indicated that the killer had searched the area, possibly planning to take expensive guitars, computers, and cell phones, and other electronics. The police concluded that the criminal entered the house specifically in search of personal information, and the criminal prosecutor's office declared it a murder. In addition, they demanded the release of CCTV footage from the area surrounding the robbery to try to identify the assailants, who they did not know about at the time. While this was happening, the detectives involved in Sonia's robbery began to notice some inaccuracies in her testimony. The description of the car and the characteristics of the criminals were so vague that they could not begin to search for witnesses who could support the woman's version. Moreover, no one even heard the shots she allegedly fired. Searched for shell casings but ultimately could not find any of them. When they inquired about the presence of CCTV cameras nearby, they discovered that there was no evidence that a robbery had taken place. Although Sonia had never been seen driving in the flow area, they discovered a connection between the woman and the terrifying scene in the house of the Chirico couple. They knew that Sonia worked in the area of the murder of pensioners, and soon after that rumors spread between them and the 7th Police Department investigating the alleged murders. Robbery. The criminal prosecutor's office began trying to establish a connection between these two incidents. Despite the fact that she did not have a weapon, she shot twice to defend herself. Interestingly, it was precisely the number of shots it took to kill Albert and Maria. According to forensic experts, the couple was killed between 123 and 1630. They noticed that Sonia was approaching the pensioner's house on a surveillance camera in the block, and an hour and a half later they were able to see her leaving. Sonia was the prime suspect in the murder. When the police checked her documents, she claimed that all her funds were confiscated, so it was a little strange when they searched her house and found over 70,000 pesos in cash. There was also gunshot residue on her police clothing. However, the woman insisted that these are the remains of a shot that occurred during a robbery the day before. Despite the fact that Sonia's gun was never found, it was established that the bullets that killed Maria and Alberto were the same as hers. Service weapon. Sonia decided to confess everything because she felt pressure from the agents. The woman first claimed that she had lied about taking the gun, but in fact she claimed that she had forgotten it and the money when she went to the toilet at a gas station. Sonia defended her version, arguing that if she was found to have lost her service firearm, she could be arrested, deprived of her license, or even fired. But no one believed her, and the testimony of two important witnesses further aggravated the situation. Fabiana Veronica Constantine, a veterinarian who practiced near Chiric's house, was the first who was interrogated. At about 10:30 on June 11th, during a conversation with Sonia, she asked her to use the toilet in her house. When she returned, the woman asked if she could install the police phone number assigned to her. Promising to answer it later, Fabiana agreed without hesitation. But closer to noon she received a message. A message from Sonia's personal phone with a request to leave her cell phone number to the military woman who ran a kiosk in front of the veterinary clinic. Fabian was not bothered by this situation. She simply assumed that Sonia would be delayed by about an hour. Florencia Chirico stated that her mother mentioned the wife of a blonde policeman with whom she often spoke. Although at first glance this story may seem innocent, It became obvious to investigators that Sonia threw away her police cell phone to prevent her geolocation from being recorded. She even went to the toilet from time to time or had a cup of coffee with milk. Since Lauren knew that Sonia had even entered the room and thought that this woman had the trust of her parents, she was worried. Sonia had a clear motive for the crime. She needed to pay off a $6,000 debt to the Funtime company to pay for her daughter's trip to Disneyland. After a month of investigation, Sonia was officially arrested and charged with robbery, double murder, and giving false testimony. She was transferred to FIC4 for women. But she was not the only one. Sonia went so far as to ask them strange questions about the exchange of dollars. This made sense considering the robbery that the pensioners had to endure after the murder. Detectives believe that the suspect, Diego, her companion, may have helped Sonia get rid of the gun or manipulated her testimony to support a false accusation. As a result, he was charged with a double aggravated eluding. Although there was not enough evidence to convict him, he was still awaiting trial as a whole until the police could finally piece together the case of the grisly murder. On June 11, 2019, around noon, Sonia visited the house of Albert and Maria on Eugenio Garzón Street in the Avellaneda Park area. She called and asked to go to the toilet or drinking coffee like she had done countless times in the past. Without suspecting, they nodded. Once inside, Sonia began hitting them on the head and threatening them with a gun to force them to confess where they hid their money. Having learned from them that it would be very easy for them to apply because they know her, the woman decided to kill them, but she still had two moral dilemmas. Firstly, she did not want to see the faces of the couple when she killed them because she knew that they were there, and secondly, she knew that all the neighbors would hear the noise of shots. Sonia found a way to get around both of these obstacles by forcing them to lie down. The woman laid them face down on the floor, covered their heads with a pillow, and started shooting. She then moved to several places in the house where the couple's funds were kept. Sonia's trial began due to the pandemic. The trial was conducted entirely remotely via the Zoom platform and broadcast on the court system's YouTube channel. She was able to steal 60,000 pesos from them, almost the same amount as was found in her house during a search on May 12, 2021. Sonia was charged with offenses including robbery. Given the aggravating circumstances that included double murder with a firearm and premeditation, the defendant stood before the judges in front of a computer screen in the prison complex and told them that according to her testimony, Sonia first of all stated that she never entered the couple's home, contradicting the testimony of their daughter. She also stated that she always drank coffee at the nearby hair salon, and that if she needed to use the restroom she would go to the nearby bakery. Passed by their house while patrolling the area, the closest communication she had with them happened when the guy asked her if she liked music, to which she answered in the affirmative. He gave her a flash drive with songs that she could listen to in the car a few days later. Sonia said that she is completely innocent, that such madness is impossible, and that she does not understand what relation she can have to this. She also denies her involvement in the double crime. She claims that on the day of the tragedy she was on duty not in the premises of the victims, but in another area. Nevertheless, videos found on surveillance cameras, and why not refute this? Sonia promised that she had no debts to F-Time to pay for her vacation at Disneyland, since, as she once again explained, she lost her service weapon in the restroom at a gas station, and that the only crime she committed was filing a false report of robbery out of fear that she would lose her job in prison. Her daughter could travel in December or February next year if she did not pay for the trip in July. She expressed deep sympathy for the victims and their families. However, her lawyer, Augusto Arena, was not involved in any of this. Asked to defend E, arguing that there was a lot of evidence to support the release of E, the prosecutor in charge of the case presented his version at the hearing, arguing that Sonia was innocent of a crime for which Diggs should not have testified. On the other hand, Diggs should not have testified at the previous interrogation. He claimed that he maintained a relationship with Sonia and even visited her while he was in prison. His defense used this to their advantage, took advantage of the relationship she had developed with the elderly over several weeks to steal their funds. Estella described in great detail how the defendants shot each of them in the head using a pillow as a muffler after torturing them with blows to the head. The only witnesses who could identify her were killed to ensure impunity for the robbery. She said that Sonia did not have alibi, which would have made it possible to find her from 12:30 to 14:00 on June 11th, while the cameras were rolling, indicated that at that very moment she was approaching the victim's house. In addition, the firearm from which both victims were killed was the same model and caliber as the one received when, during a search of Sonia's house, a significant amount of money was found identical to that which was seized from the victims. It is obvious that she faces the most severe punishment, by coincidence. The same gun disappeared on the day of the events. The last hearing took place on June 5, 2021. Shortly before the decision was made public, Sonia asked to speak briefly. She told how unpleasant it was for her to not be able to take care of her daughter again, stated that the false accusation was a mistake and that she would never take responsibility for the couple's murders because she had nothing to do with it. The jury concluded that the woman desperately needed money to pay an entertainment company for her daughter's trip to Disneyland in honor of her 15th birthday. Sonia was found guilty of aggravated robbery because the crime was the use of a firearm in a double murder and abuse of her position. Sonia was eventually sentenced to life imprisonment after being falsely accused by a police officer. Hearing the decision, she bowed her head and sobbed in front of the computer screen. Diga, on the other hand, was acquitted of the charge under the circumstances as no evidence was used against him. However, unlike he chose to remain silent after the jury's verdict, meaning he has likely spent most of his life in prison. She will serve at least 35 years in prison but will be eligible for release when she turns 69 in 2054. Friends, write your opinion in the comments and also subscribe to the channel and watch my other videos. Thank you all.